What's up guys, Cloudie here checking in from the America server, and today we're gonna be talking about NPC heroes. Some of you suggested that this should be a topic we revisit in 2021. Now to quickly give a recap about NPC heroes, in most games these are non-playable characters like shopkeepers, quest givers and so on. In KR they are also this role, but they also can be recruited and used in your team. So I would kind of like to refer to them as not quite premium characters, and that is because to recruit them, unlike other heroes, you need to give them gifts, which you can buy either from Jin's shop using dragon coins, or you can craft some of the gifts using materials from Juno's shop, and then other dust that you get from grinding great gear. Sadly, technomagic gear is not included in this, so you cannot grind technomagic gear, or grinding technomagic gear will not give you the dust that you need for NPC gifts, which is a bit of a bummer because you don't really farm the other raid gear anymore. So once you have obtained these characters, to get their unique weapons, you can need to keep giving gifts to these heroes, and that's how you keep getting their weapons, and then you can start them up. Thankfully, their unique treasures and their soul weapons are not locked behind this, so it kind of helps with raising them up. But yeah, definitely it's a lot of investment to get their unique weapons up, and with some of them this can be quite worthwhile. For others, less so, and because there are quite a few of them, it's kind of worth looking at them, what they can do, and whether they are worth raising for your team or not. What more we need to know about them is that all of them come with like a special passive ability, which usually lowers the cost in the shops that they man, or gives some other passive bonuses, which we will look at when we go through the list. So let's just check them all out. It's kind of hard to give a comprehensive list of whom to get when, but it kind of depends on what your team is and what you are trying to do. So I collected them all here at the top of the list. These are all the NPC heroes in the game, and we will try to put them in order. So let's start with the first one, which is Cain, because you just get him for free. What does he do, and how useful is he? So if you see it, he has this attribute called Cain's Blessing, and if we go into this screen, then you can see that his blessing increases attack of all allies by 100,000 in Eclipse. Now Cain you get for free when you are clearing the soul weapon content, so that's kind of nice. His use is mainly arena these days. He's like there to support bruiser type of teams. In PvE he has some buffs, and he's actually not bad at Eclipse itself, because he has a stacking damage buff that makes him stronger with each wave, and he's a pretty good boss killer. So if you team him up with someone who is good at killing the waves, then he can get pretty far with a fairly low investment. But there aren't that many heavily invested Cains, because he's not really useful in any kind of scoring content, and he is mainly there for support in PvP, for which he doesn't really need a high investment. So most people do not raise their Cains to be too strong. That's why he's generally not really a common character for everyone to use, but he can be used in PvP, and he has some PvE uses, so he's not totally worthless. Just have to know where to use him. Next on the list is Hanus, who is in the guild content, the guild war building, the command center, and Hanus joins the battle is her passive ability, which increases attack speed of all allies by 100 during guild war. Now this is a pretty terrible passive, if you ask me. The main good thing about her is that you can use, she has a second gift type that you can get for Guild War coins, and by giving her that you can raise her unique weapon, and if you have a unique weapon transfer ticket, you can transfer that to another NPC who would be harder to raise, thereby making your life a bit easier, a bit faster. But yeah, that's a bit complicated, and in generally her use, she can be used in PvP. There are some burst decks that use her very quick S1 to just wipe out the enemy team, and she's not a terrible damage dealer, especially in like Vel'Khazar, where she can still get a kill. So all in all, not terribly strong. She can be used in that scoring content, at least. I think some have also run her in like Senates, but she isn't like top of the line there. And she has some PvP uses, but because of her passive, being kind of weak, and there being better options for everything that she does, I don't really recommend raising her, other than for the fact if you want to transfer her unique weapon, which I did myself in a previous video I've shown you guys. So all in all, Hanus is pretty down the line, I would say. Not really worth unless you do have the transfer ticket or are planning to get one from the shop, because Vespa is selling those now. Otherwise, I would say skip this one. Next in the line, actually one of my favorite characters is Nikki. I think she's just gorgeous, and I would really love to see her get more action. But sadly, sadly she also isn't one of the top of the line characters. Her blessing, Nikki's blessing, very original name, Vespa there, it increases the stockade vault keys that you have daily, which could be nice if you could use it like an extra gold run, but you cannot, which means that you can still only get 2 gold runs, 2 XP runs, and after a while, especially like after the first few months, you do not really need the extra keys anymore. It's just you mostly run stockade for the gold and maybe to level up any extra characters you have, but skill books and fragments do not really matter at that point in the game anymore, and that extra key is just not really helping you. Now Nikki has some niche uses in PvE where she can reduce physical block to 0, she gives some amp, so there are some contents like Trial of Earth where she can be used, or like Siegfried for physical teams, but it's a very minimal use, and she is not really there in any kind of scoring content either. And well, she has PvP uses where she can be a very powerful member of a bruiser comp, but yeah, she suffers from this premium category where to really make her strong and deal damage too, you need to invest a lot, and for a niche use like that, she is kind of a premium hero in that regard, and for that she isn't terribly strong. Like, she has some good stuff, continuous dispels and whatnot, but yeah, it's like there are other options that are cheaper to have, and therefore you also will not see too many Nikki users in the game. But those who have really built her can be quite scary. It's just like, yeah, the cost doesn't really quite come along the usefulness of her. So has some niche uses in PvE, but for that you don't really need to raise her unique weapon, and has some PvP use, but yeah, even for that you can just bring other alternatives. So not a terrible character, but also not great. Next in the line, kind of in tie with Dosarta and Juno, will be Mei. Now Mei was the original NPC hero of the game. Her attribute is Mei's Blessing. She's the shopkeeper in Orwell, and her bonus is that you get a gold discount on the purchases made in her shop. Now the problem with this is that you don't really buy that many things in Mei shop, because usually you just have like empty flasks and stuff. So if there was really useful stuff all the time in her shop, then this would be useful, but sadly there isn't really, unless you are like buying empty flasks and filling them for XP to sell them. Then maybe it's like okay-ish, but yeah, so her passive is definitely not on the bright side of things. Now Mei has like 0 PvP uses. You can see some things memeing around with her, but she's just not really made for PvP. On the PvE end, she has some very powerful buffs, and it scales with her unique weapon, so it can be worth to raise her unique weapon and her soul weapon, because it's also quite useful. The main problem here is that for the level of investment of needing an NPC hero, she is not that strong in buffing your team anymore, especially with the advent of Fallen Frey and now the recent comeback of Shea. You can have both Fallen Frey and Shea in a team, and the first character you will probably drop for them is Mei, because of her buffs are just not keeping up with those other two anymore, and there are better choices for a lot of team compositions, especially in scoring contents, world bosses, guild conquest. You will often see Mei being dropped, so because of that, raising her is like questionable. If you do not have Fallen Frey, but you should really, or if you aren't planning on having Shea in your team, then maybe. But again, both of those are easier to raise than an NPC, and also Mei can get by with a low unique weapon. I would probably just sooner go for those other two if you want to get those really top scores, because sooner or later you will be benching Mei, and then all that investment in her unique weapon and stuff will be will be moot and kind of a wasted investment. So yeah, that's why at this point in the game I don't really recommend for you to get Mei unless you really like her design or really want to play her. But both her passive and her usefulness kind of, again, put her on the lower end of the NPC hero list. Similar to her, Dosarta, who is the sister of Celine, an elven princess, and she's guarding the Tower of Challenge, and her passive Dosarta's Blessing is tied to this as well. She gives an extra fragment drop, or is it two? Two more artifact pieces when you are running the stages in the Tower of Challenge, which doesn't sound too bad because you farm a lot of fragment pieces in the Tower of Challenge. The main issue with this is that we have so many premium kind of artifacts from Shockmail, Guild Conquest, World Boss, that the normal artifacts, and of course the event artifacts, that the normal artifacts are now kind of losing ground. You especially in scoring content, you barely equip any normal artifacts anymore, and because the artifact crafting is entirely random, it's just getting two more fragments. It helps, of course, it makes your artifact accumulation faster, but it's still just so random that I wouldn't get her just for this bonus alone. Now her usefulness in PvE, she can be used in some contents. There is like some challenge raids that really help, where you can have a 0 mana or a low mana cost cleanse, but you can get by with other heroes. Her amp is not really high, she doesn't make your team survive much better than with any other composition. So basically she is not present in almost any scoring contents nowadays. Even in Vel'Khazar, magic teams are now running without a tank, and they just use Oddi or Annette as a tank instead of Dosarta, because the buffs provided by her aren't really strong enough to justify the spot, and so she doesn't really have a real role in PvE. PvP, the low mana cost cleanse can be really nice, and she has some CC, some mana burn, so there are plenty of comps using her, especially because she is like a sort of counter to Dark Lord Castle's mana block, because she can cleanse it with a 0 mana skill, which can make or break the game depending on which end you are on. So yeah, she has some uses, but they are again very niche, and her passive is like a bit so. That's why she's kind of tied with both Mei and Juno. Moving on to Juno, the cook from hell, who is super cute in my opinion. So she is the innkeeper. Her bonus is the Juno's Blessing, and she gives a 40% discount on the items you buy from her shop. So these are the stuff that you get with the points you receive from friendship points, and from sometimes from the characters that you meet at the inn. There is some food stuff there which gives stamina, and there is also those items that you can use to craft NPC gifts, so that's not too bad of a discount. It's fairly limited, both in terms of what you can buy and how many of those points you get per day. So it's not a bad bonus, but it's also not something phenomenal. And in that regard, she in PvE, well, she isn't really used in any scoring content again. She has some nice amps and a lot of crit chance bonus, but a lot of people have dropped her again. Fallen Frey, Shell, kind of just, you have a limited number of spots you can take for a certain team, and it's hard to bring someone who doesn't bring all that much amplification, or that makes your life easier, and Juno is just not that girl, sadly. Maybe those other two are just too strong, or maybe she could use a buff. In PvP, she's mostly part of bruiser or tankish type of teams. She has a cleanse, she has a dispel, and she has shield. She's quite useful, is a very strong healer, and she can be built as a DPS. There are some very scary Junos out there, but again, the NPC premiumness kind of makes it hard to make her someone that you want to build. So again, if you want to have like a surprise character for PvP, then she can be really good at that, but for PvE there are much better choices to be built who are cheaper to build, and so she's also not really one of the recommended ones. So these were the lower types, I believe, that I don't really recommend anyone to start building at the beginning of the game, because it just makes your own life harder, and like you don't really get back the investment that you put in for that. But let's move on, because we have some very interesting characters for NPCs, the last 4. Let's start with Talisha. Who is the best girl in my opinion. She's just super cute, even with those red eyes, which can be scary a bit. So Talisha's Blessing decreases the ruby cost of the central ore world neighborhood, so you can open it for a bit less. But again, it costs 200 rubies, and it's not like you open it all the time, because there are other places where you can burn your stamina. So I think the passive alone in itself is not really worth, because it just doesn't, you don't use that dungeon so often, or I don't believe you do, because there are just so many other things that you can farm with your stamina. But Talisha herself is a very powerful DPS, especially in Sky Trial and Eclipse, where she really shines thanks to her ignore defense mechanics. She's just really useful, and if you are a Magic Team user, then she can be quite great, making your life there easier. Right now Sky Trial is my favorite, because unless I get terrible RNG, Talisha just breezes through it. But you can see I have heavily invested in getting her unique weapon. I used the Hanus transfer there, and or not quite the Hanus transfer, I transferred my Veronica, but whatever. I used the transfer there, and I built her all the way up, and she does quite alright with that. She also does quite good in Eclipse, and as I said, Sky Trial just makes it a really easy run with her. And soul weapon content and ether content is something where you really get gated, so getting Talisha is something I would actually recommend people to do if they are running a magic team and they do not want to, say, get a Grimoire or heavily invest in, say, an arch who can clear that, because magic is kind of suffering in the Sky Trial department, while, say, physical teams have their Panseron runs, which are fairly simple. And yeah, so Talisha, all in all, the passive buff not so strong, but her usefulness in relevant content, which is like soul weapons and ethers, makes her, I believe, a worthy investment if you are running a physical, or not physical, a magic team. And speaking of physical teams, the other character, also one of the original NPCs of the game, is Gladi. Gladi's Blessing is his passive attribute, which gives you a 10% discount when buying items from the League of Victory shop, where you can now buy unique weapons and unique treasures. Now, originally this buff was really powerful, because Gladi's shop, the League of Victory shop, was pretty much the only place where you could buy unique weapons, and you could get like 1 unique weapon every month. So getting a 10% discount there wasn't too bad. In the long run, it meant that getting him was kind of worth, even if you only got him for the passive itself. Nowadays there are more sources of unique weapons and unique treasures, so the victory shop bonus isn't that strong anymore. It's still not too bad, but it's not really that significant anymore as it was in the earlier days of the game. So wouldn't quite get him just for that. But Gladi is an extremely powerful DPS and build, which means that you have to invest in him heavily, but he's like crazy brutal boss killer and works in quite a few contents. So if you are running a physical team and want to have a very strong assassin, where physical teams aren't actually that strong, then Gladi is a great choice. It's just that you have to pay the NPC price. It is quite costly to invest in him, so have to consider that if you do or not. But yeah, definitely worth building if you want to see high numbers. And on top of that, he's also useful in PvP. I have seen several bruiser type teams with near unkillable Gladys who would just like walk over your team, kill your tank, kill your front line, and then just waltz up to your back line and just murder you like there was no tomorrow. So Gladi, definitely a very powerful character. If you are willing to pay the NPC price, then he can be one of the strongest characters in your deck, which is not too bad. And then we arrive at the final 2 contestants of the NPC deck. Veronica, who is the guild administrator. her blessing of Veronica is quite powerful. You might, well, powerful. You get a 10% discount in all guild shops, which means the normal shop, the guild raid shop, and the guild war shop. So a lot of the stuff that you would be buying from your guild stuff it will be discounted. So in the long run, that really does help. And on top of that, Veronica has one of the strongest buffs for scoring content. So like Valkazar, world bosses, challenge raids. So having her, even in some trials, you can have comps with her, and having her just makes your numbers go up so much that it's just really good to have her. The good news is that she can roll without her unique weapon. She does scale somewhat with it, but you do not need to have a crazy high star unique weapon to make her useful. On the other hand, her soul weapon is really powerful at A2, so you kind of want to get it to advancement level 2, but you do not need to pump ethers in it because she can just roll with a lower number. And she can go full on support lines on the techno magic gear, so she will not be doing damage. You can kind of pick random gear with good lines. You don't even need to reforge it. As long as she's not dying, she can provide good support to your team. So in that regard, she is like a medium investment character. Can use an A2 weapon, and she will just make your PvE content so much better. Pretty much any serious scoring team will have an A2 Veronica in it. So yeah, that's something to consider. And of course, the guild bonuses are quite nice, even if like Beast of Chaos gear isn't that relevant anymore, but all the other stuff still can be good. And don't forget that Vespa has promised us some rework on the guild content in Q1 this year, so they have like a little bit of time left. We might hear from that about that soon, so we will see. But yeah, I would say Veronica is a super good character. She works both for magic and for physical teams. Definitely, if you are into PvE and want to get good scores and stuff, get Veronica, and at some point get her up to A2 because it's just worth it. And finally, perhaps the best physical or more all-around unit for physical is Loman, who has his Blessing of Loman, which will give you a discount, a 10% discount in the Orwell Castle shop. Now this is where you buy your world boss artifacts, which are some of the most powerful artifacts in the game. So just alone for this bonus he is worth. Even if you do not plan to invest in him, he is just worth for that 10% bonus, because the world boss artifacts are just so powerful, and they are so gated because you only get a certain amount of points each week. There is no way to speed that up unless you are buying like the artifact selector things from the shop. But yeah, basically if you are going a more free to play, not pay route, then this bonus of Loman over time adds just up so much that it's really worth to have him. Can't stress this part enough. On top of that, he is a very versatile and powerful tank, especially for physical teams. He provides defense, he provides amplification, he has good CC, he has a shield with a cleanse, which makes him one of the go-to units for PvP, because shields are just extremely powerful. And yeah, he has so many things. His soul weapon is good, it has like healing, it has cleanse in it. He is just, I would say, the most well-rounded NPC character. And yeah, if you are running physical, I think he's a must-have hero. If you are running magic, then maybe actually he's still worth just for that world boss artifact discount, because 10% goes a very long way. So 10% just adds up over the long way. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say here. But yeah, so this is it, guys. NPC heroes for you early 2021. Now, Vespa had, I believe, like a poll or something where they were asking which NPC hero we would like to see next, and I think they were also asking like what kind of skills we would like to see or something like. So we might see a new one soonish. There has been no rumors about that yet, but who knows, it's been quite a while. Talisha was the last one who was released, I believe, and that was quite a while ago, somewhere back like Q2, Q3 2020. So who knows, we might see a new NPC hero soon, but for now, this is the complete list. I hope I didn't forget anyone. and then we might see a new one in the future. As said, if you pick someone from these 4, you will usually not be disappointed. They are very, very useful in their own departments, have either good bonuses or are really, really powerful in their roles, therefore generally good investment. So yeah, this has been it, guys. I hope this video was informative for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the video below. Let me know actually which NPC you would like to see in the team. I personally still want Jin, so I can just leave him at level 1 and make him die in horrible ways for breaking all my stuff throughout the years. But there are a lot of other options that we could have, and some are people's favorites that they would like to see in game. So yeah, let me know, guys. And this has been Cloudie for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.